I stood frozen in my apartment doorway, staring at the elegant woman who just destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life. "Hello, Jake," Vanessa Crawford said, her designer heels clicking against my cheap linoleum as she stepped inside uninvited. "I believe we need to talk about my husband and your real job." I was 28 years old, broke, and working nights at Meridian Corporate Plaza when I learned that doing the right thing could ruin your life. Well, at least temporarily. My name is Jake Miller, and back then I was just another security guard making $12 an hour to walk empty hallways and pretend I mattered. 3 years of college had taught me nothing useful except how to accumulate debt, so I dropped out and drifted between security jobs ever since. Turns out, being thorough and honest aren't exactly prized qualities in the security business. Who knew? The Meridian job was supposed to be different. 15 floors of corporate offices, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift, and enough quiet time to maybe figure out what I actually wanted to do with my life. 6 months in, I'd mastered the art of looking busy while contemplating my questionable life choices. The pay barely covered my studio apartment, but hey, at least I had health care. Then there was Mr. Crawford, regional director, corner office on the 12th floor, and the kind of guy who looked through you like you were furniture. 45 years old, expensive suits, and an ego that needed its own zip code. He treated everyone below middle management like we were invisible, which honestly made my job easier, less awkward small talk in the elevator. But Crawford's wife? She was different. Vanessa would show up at company events looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine, yet she actually talked to people like me, asked how I was doing, remembered my name, made sense why Crawford married way above his league. The discovery happened on a Tuesday night around 2 a.m. I was doing my usual rounds, checking locked doors and empty offices, when I noticed Crawford's corner office still had lights on. Standard procedure meant investigating anything unusual, even if it was probably just someone forgetting to flip a switch. I walked down that executive hallway, my footsteps echoing off marble floors that cost more than my annual salary. The weird part is, I almost turned around. Something felt off. Maybe it was the complete silence, or maybe my subconscious was trying to save me from what came next. Through the glass partition, I saw them. Crawford and Rebecca, his secretary, on the leather couch that probably cost more than my car. They weren't discussing quarterly reports, if you catch my drift. Rebecca was maybe 25, blonde, and clearly enjoying her performance review. I backed away immediately, my heart pounding like I'd just run a marathon. This wasn't what I'd signed up for. Sure, I'd expected to catch the occasional employee stealing office supplies, but witnessing the boss's extracurricular activities? That was above my pay grade. For the rest of my shift, I wrestled with what I'd seen. My job description technically required reporting security incidents. But was this really a security issue? Crawford was authorized to be in his office. Rebecca worked there too. The fact that they were breaking several HR policies and Crawford's marriage vows wasn't exactly my department. But then I kept thinking about Vanessa, how she'd smile at company gatherings while her husband schmoozed clients, how she'd ask about my studies and actually listen to my answers. She deserved better than being married to someone who was cheating on her with half the secretarial pool. By morning, my decision was made. I'd document everything professionally and submit it through proper channels. Let HR figure out what to do with the information. I wasn't trying to destroy anyone's life, just doing my job the way I'd been trained. Looking back now, I realize how naive that sounds. I actually believed the system would handle things fairly. That truth mattered more than office politics, that someone like me could make a difference by simply following the rules. What I didn't know was that I'd just walked into the most elaborate setup of my life. 2 days later, I got the call that would teach me how quickly your life can implode when you trust the system. "Jake Miller, this is Patricia Wells from Human Resources. We need you to come in this afternoon for a meeting." Her voice had that careful neutrality that immediately made my stomach drop. Nobody calls you into HR on your day off to give you good news. I showed up at 2 p.m. wearing my best shirt, which wasn't saying much. The HR office smelled like cheap air freshener and broken dreams. Patricia Wells sat behind her desk, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. But here's the kicker. Crawford was sitting right there beside her, wearing a shit-eating grin that should have warned me what was coming. "Please, have a seat, Jake." Patricia gestured to the single chair facing both of them. Classic intimidation setup. 2 against 1, power dynamics on full display. I felt like I was about to get grilled by disappointed parents. Crawford leaned forward, suddenly very interested in my well-being. "Jake, we're concerned about you. Patricia and I have been discussing some troubling patterns in your behavior lately." Patterns? I'd been doing the same boring rounds for 6 months. What patterns could there possibly be? Then Crawford started painting a picture that would have been impressive if it wasn't completely fictional. According to him, I'd been acting strangely for weeks, showing up at inappropriate times on executive floors, making other employees uncomfortable with my erratic behavior. The worst part? He delivered it all with this fake concerned tone, like he was genuinely worried about my mental health. "Patricia, I hate to say this, but I'm wondering if Jake might be struggling with some personal issues. Substance abuse, perhaps?" My jaw dropped. Substance abuse? The strongest thing I consumed was gas station coffee and the occasional energy drink. But Crawford was just getting started. "Last Tuesday night, Jake appeared at my office door acting very agitated," Crawford continued, his voice dripping with manufactured sympathy. "When I asked if everything was all right, he began making wild accusations about things he claimed to have witnessed. Frankly, I was concerned for his stability." Wild accusations? I'd witnessed him playing hide the sausage with his secretary, documented it professionally, and submitted a factual report. But somehow, Crawford had flipped the script. Now, I wasn't a conscientious employee reporting misconduct. I was an unstable troublemaker, spreading malicious rumors. Patricia nodded along like she was buying every word. "Jake, these are serious allegations Mr. Crawford is making. Do you have any explanation for this behavior?" The beautiful thing about gaslighting is how it makes you question your own sanity. For a split second, I actually wondered if I'd imagined the whole thing. Maybe I'd been sleepwalking and dreamed up Crawford's horizontal meeting with Rebecca. Then common sense kicked in. "I submitted a standard incident report through proper channels," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I documented what I observed during my security rounds and followed company protocol." Crawford's fake concern shifted into overdrive. "You see, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Jake seems genuinely convinced these fantasies are real. I think he needs help, not punishment." The bastard was actually trying to sound compassionate while stabbing me in the back. Patricia was eating it up too. You could see the calculation in her eyes. Protect the regional director who brought in millions, or believe the minimum wage security guard with no connections. Math was never my strong suit, but even I could solve that equation. "Mr. Miller," Patricia said, her tone shifting to official business mode, "we take workplace disruption very seriously. Making false accusations against senior management is grounds for immediate termination." False accusations? I had documentation. I had timestamps. Hell, there were probably security cameras that would back up my story. But none of that mattered when you're disposable and the person you're accusing signs the paychecks. Crawford delivered the final blow with surgical precision. "I want you to know, Jake, that I don't take this personally. I genuinely hope you get the help you need, but we can't have employees creating hostile work environments based on delusions." Delusions. That was the word that really stung. Not mistakes or misunderstandings. Delusions. Like I was some unstable nutcase who couldn't tell reality from fantasy. The worst part was how reasonable he sounded saying it. The actual termination took about 5 minutes. Immediate dismissal for violation of professional conduct and spreading unsubstantiated rumors harmful to company morale. My final paycheck would be reduced for damages to company reputation. Security would escort me out immediately. I sat there in stunned silence as my life crumbled around me. 6 months of decent work history gone. My security clearance probably compromised. Any chance of getting a reference from this job? Forget about it. The security escort was the ultimate humiliation. 2 guys I'd worked alongside for months walked me to my locker like I was some kind of criminal. They wouldn't make eye contact. Smart move, guilt by association and all that. The next 3 days blurred together in a haze of self-doubt and mounting panic. I sat in my studio apartment, staring at rejection emails and eviction notices, wondering how everything had gone so wrong so fast. Doing the right thing was supposed to matter. Honesty was supposed to count for something. Instead, I'd learned that the system wasn't designed to protect people like me. It was designed to protect people like Crawford, who understood that truth was negotiable if you had enough power to rewrite the narrative. By day 3, reality was setting in hard. Rent was due in a week. My savings account looked like a rounding error. Job applications were disappearing into the void, probably flagged by whatever blacklist Crawford had managed to get me on. I'd applied for everything: other security jobs, retail positions, anything that would keep me off the streets. But Crawford's termination report was following me like a bad smell. Who wants to hire someone labeled as unstable and delusional? The bitterness was eating me alive. Every time I thought about Crawford's smug face or Patricia's calculated indifference, my blood pressure spiked. They'd destroyed my life to protect their precious corporate hierarchy, and there wasn't a damn thing I could do about it. That's when the world decided to flip my understanding of everything upside down one more time. The doorbell rang just as I was contemplating whether ramen noodles for the 7th straight meal constituted a balanced diet. I wasn't expecting anyone. Hell, I barely knew anyone in this city well enough for surprise visits. But there she stood, looking like she'd stepped out of a boardroom and into my pathetic existence for reasons I couldn't begin to understand. Vanessa Crawford stood in my doorway looking like she owned the place, which, as I was about to learn, wasn't far from the truth. "I imagine you're confused," she said, settling onto my second-hand couch like it was designer furniture. Her composure was unsettling. Most people would be awkward walking into a stranger's apartment, but she acted like this was just another Tuesday. My brain was scrambling to catch up. "Mrs. Crawford, if this is about what happened at the office, it's exactly about what happened at the office." She opened her purse and pulled out a manila folder. But not in the way you think. The folder landed on my coffee table with a soft thud. Inside were documents that made my head spin. Building ownership papers, corporate investment records, legal contracts with enough zeros to make my eyes water. "Jake, let me ask you something. Did you ever wonder who actually owned Meridian Corporate Plaza?" I hadn't, honestly. Big buildings belong to big companies, right? That's how the world worked in my limited experience. "My family trust owns that building," Vanessa continued, her voice steady as granite. "Has for 8 years. My husband doesn't just work there, he works for me, whether he realizes it or not." The pieces weren't fitting together yet, but something was definitely shifting in my understanding of reality. Then came the bombshell that rewrote everything I thought I knew about my situation. "Jake, I hired you specifically." My mouth fell open. "What?" "Not directly, of course, but I recommended you to the security company. I'd been watching my husband for months, suspecting he was having affairs, but needing proof for our prenuptial agreement. The thing about prenups is they're worthless unless you can document actual adultery." She pulled out another set of papers. Legal documents with my name on them, my HR report, security footage timestamps, my employment application with highlighted sections. "I researched you thoroughly before making my recommendation. Former college student, honest to a fault. 3 previous jobs where you reported misconduct despite personal cost. You had a reputation for integrity that preceded you." The room started spinning slightly. "You set me up?" "I positioned you for success," she corrected. "I knew if you witnessed Richard's behavior, you'd report it properly, create an official paper trail, document everything according to protocol. But the setup went deeper than I could have imagined. I also knew Richard would panic and try to discredit you. His reaction was so over the top that it actually confirmed everything you'd reported. See, Richard isn't nearly as clever as he thinks he is." She showed me Crawford's termination report for me. His claims were so elaborate, so detailed, that they painted a picture of someone desperately trying to cover something up. Any lawyer worth their retainer would see through it immediately. The beautiful part is, Richard destroyed his own credibility trying to destroy yours. Your professional documentation combined with his obvious overreaction gave me everything I needed for the divorce proceedings. My head was reeling, but she wasn't finished. "The prenuptial agreement is void due to adultery. Richard loses everything in the divorce: the house, the cars, the lifestyle he's grown accustomed to. But here's the really satisfying part. I'm also removing him from his company position. Hard to be regional director when the building owner decides you're no longer welcome." Justice was finally making its appearance, fashionably late, but worth the wait. "Jake, I need someone to manage this property. Someone who understands the building, has proven integrity, and won't steal from me or sleep with the tenants. The salary is $36,000 annually, plus benefits and a management apartment on the top floor. Triple my security guard's salary, healthcare. A place to live that wasn't falling apart. But the real revelation was simpler than money or revenge. Sometimes doing the right thing requires faith that truth will eventually surface. Sometimes justice takes the scenic route. And sometimes your biggest allies come from the most unexpected places. I stared at the contract in my hands, the numbers blurring slightly. $36,000. Benefits. An actual apartment with windows that weren't cracked. 6 months ago, this would have seemed impossible. Why me? I asked, still trying to process everything. I mean, really, why me? Vanessa smiled for the first time since she'd arrived. Not the polite company party smile I remembered, but something genuine. Because you did the right thing when it would have been easier not to. That's rarer than you'd think. She stood up, smoothing down her skirt. Richard will be served divorce papers tomorrow morning. He'll also receive notice that his employment is terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort him out, just like they did to you. The irony was delicious. Crawford would get the exact same humiliation he'd put me through, except his fall would be much further. I have one question, I said. What if I hadn't taken the job? What if your plan hadn't worked? Then I would have found another way, she replied without hesitation. But I researched you carefully, Jake. I knew you'd do exactly what you did. People don't change their core character just because the stakes get higher. She handed me a business card with her direct number. Take tonight to think about it, but don't take too long. I need someone to start Monday, and frankly, you need a job before your landlord changes those locks. After she left, I sat in my tiny apartment holding that contract. 3 days ago, I'd been ready to give up on the whole concept of justice. The system had chewed me up and spit me out for telling the truth. Turns out the system was more complicated than I'd realized. Sometimes justice doesn't come from HR departments or corporate policies. Sometimes it comes from patient people with deeper pockets and longer memories. Sometimes the person you think you're protecting is actually protecting you. I signed the contract that night, right there on my coffee table next to a stack of unpaid bills. Monday morning, I walked back into Meridian Corporate Plaza, wearing a new shirt and carrying a building manager's key card. The security guards nodded respectfully. The receptionist called me Mr. Miller. Crawford's corner office was already empty. His personal items boxed up by security over the weekend. From my new office on the 15th floor, I could see the whole city. Doing the right thing had nearly destroyed me, but it had also saved me in ways I never could have imagined. Sometimes you just have to have faith that the truth will win eventually, even when it takes the long way around.